Radcliff Conrad was the sheriff of Sirkiwah County, Ari. He was known to be the most fearless and coolest person all around. But he was a coward at heart. It was a secret known to no one. Every time he had to deal with danger, his heart beat fast. He could not stand the sight of bloodshed. Every time he had to overpower his fear lest the people should know the reality. He had been lucky. He had dealt with many situations demanding courage, and he had come out successful. People admired him for his infinite courage and valor. But Rad had the apprehension that someday the truth would be out and everyone would know him to be a coward. One day there was a critical situation. Arizona Dan was the worst criminal known in the county. He broke mirrors and glasses worth thousands of dollars in a place of entertainment. He had injured several persons also. He had hidden himself in bushes. People had complained to Rad, who was the sheriff. He realized his duty. He wanted to arrest Dan single-handed. He asked some men how Dan was armed. They told him that he had left his guns behind. Obviously he was unarmed. To keep up his reputation, and in a foolhardy display of his courage, Rad unbuckled his revolver and left it behind. He went in search of Dan to take on him unarmed. People praised him for this courage. But they were not surprised because Rad was known to be like that. Dan was too drunk to know any fear. He was hiding in the bushes near the gulch. He was waiting for the nightfall so that he could escape in the dark. Miss Boadicea Reed was the eldest daughter of the postmaster. Her younger sisters were at school. She sat carelessly in a grapevine swing. She was attractive. She was wearing starched muslin clothes. She had a secret which was known only to her close friends. She was afraid of no living or non-living thing. She had no feminine weakness. There had been proposals of marriage, but she had not been inclined to marry. Till she was 18, she had an ambition to dress herself like a man, and go around the world selling soaps or jewelry. But at 20, she had given up that ambition. She wished to be the leading woman singer in an opera troupe. Swinging in the grapevine, she happened to see a man's eye behind the thick clump of bushes. It was excessively red because of over-drunkenness. Involuntarily she smoothed the knot of her hair and thrust the hairpins more securely. She asked the man to come out of his hiding. He was Dan. Dan told her that she should keep quiet. He tried to assure her that he was not going to harm her. But Boadicea was not afraid. She asked him why he was hiding there. He told her that he was waiting for the nightfall. Then he would go away. He told her what he had done. He suspected that Rad, the sheriff, might come to arrest him. Just then Rad came there. He was a handsome young man with blonde hair and steel-gray eyes. He was strong and graceful. Boadicea looked at him and loved him at first sight. Rad came very close to Dan and told him to surrender. But Dan drew a 9-inch knife and challenged Rad. Rad was indeed a coward at heart. A deadly physical fear came upon him. He was panicked. His feet were frozen. A branch to his right rustled, and he gave a flitting glance. Boadicea's dark eyes were fixed on him. They seemed to flash some exalting essence into his veins. The heavy burden of fear left his heart. He was filled with prudent courage and confidence, as if Boadicea's fearless soul had entered into him. Half the miracle was accomplished. The other half was to follow. Now Rad knew no fear. He laughed with joy. He once again asked Dan to surrender. But Dan flashed his knife. Rad moved a few inches closer cautiously. It appears that drunkenness had unstrung Dan's nerves. By chance small stone was dislodged by Boadicea's foot, and it rattled down the path. Dan was unnerved, and turned his head to look what it was. This gave Rad an advantage. He pounced on Dan. He held Dan's wrist in a steel-lit grip and put his other arm round his waist. Dan struggled, but Rad twisted the wrist relentlessly till Dan dropped the knife. Then Rad put his arm round Dan's throat. They struggled and fell down. Dan's head hit a boulder and he lay unconscious. Rad bound him hand and foot. Boadicea leapt down from her seat through the bushes. She admired Rad. Her tongue faltered. Her cheeks flushed and her eyes were low as for the first time in her life. Rad said it was getting dark. He offered to lead her to her house. As they were walking, Boadicea, who had never known fear, was scared. Look at a harmless lizard. She gave out a shriek. She had been fearless by far, but now Rad's spirit had entered her. She became a coward. Rad put his protective arm around her. Rad's and Boadicea's souls had exchanged their places. The miracle was complete. You may now open your eyes. Thank you.